Hello and welcome to CEO Stories, a new mini-series from the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce where we explore the journeys of some of the region's leading and up-and-coming CEOs. I'm your host, Henrietta, Chief Executive of the Chambers, and today I am delighted to be joined by Sheila Brown, CEO of Newlife charity. Sheila, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Okay, it's always great to meet you, Henrietta. It's always great to chat.
And I've been lucky enough to see what you do in action with a behind-the-scenes tour of your very impressive operations in Cannock. But for those who don't know you, could you start by telling us just a bit about you and Newlife charity?
Okay, well, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Newlife, the charity for disabled children. We're 30 years old and essentially we set out to change the lives and the futures of disabled children and their families all over the UK. So I set up the charity many years ago with another parent. I'm a parent of two disabled sons, and we felt strongly that something had to change. And so we set up a charity, and originally we were focused on health, but actually we realised then there were some really urgent issues that needed our attention. So we changed what we were doing and focused very much on helping the children of today. We fund medical research and lots of other things too, but we're a national charity. It's a busy life because most of our money is made actually from running a multi-million-pound commercial operation, providing services to major retailers.
So here you are today, CEO of a multi-million-pound charity, changing the lives of disabled children across the country. What would 10-year-old Sheila think of what you're doing today? Is this always where you saw yourself going with your career?
Oh, absolutely not. I'm a farmer's daughter, so I assumed that I would just muck out cows for the rest of my life. But I loved farming, and but your life when you're young has an enormous effect on you, and we never had a lot of money in my family. I would say, we struggled financially. It was difficult many times. That is often the way in farming. It's a difficult world to survive in. And so when I was 10, I had nothing on my mind other than getting through the next bit and the next and the next. So I think that changed when I was about 13, 12 going 13, when I actually realised, well, if I wanted nice things, I needed to work for them. And a friend of mine had got a job on Cannock Market and said, they're looking for somebody else. Do you want to come along? Which meant I had to lie about my age because you couldn't work in those days until you were 14. So I had to pretend that I was 14 to get a job on a fruit and veg store. But, earning your own money early on makes you value it, and it makes you understand the power of it in your life. So, retailing you think is a far cry from farming, really. But I had the most amazing guy I worked for, Mr. Roberts, and he taught me everything I've ever needed to know about retail, really. Mm-hmm. And it stood me in pretty good stead. If you sell fruit and veg, the one thing you learn to have to do is sell. Because if you don't sell it on a Saturday, by the time the next market comes around on Wednesday, it's gone off. So you have to learn to sell quickly. So at 10, no, I was just getting through the next day.
So starting from those roots in farming, going into retail, already seeing a little bit of entrepreneurialism there coming through with the market trading. And like you say, that imperative of if you got it, you got to sell it. Where did your career go next? What was next for Sheila?
Well, when I left school, I tried hairdressing. And it turned out I was allergic to many of the products. So that paid to that. So that was a nice idea. But I was one of the last years to ever leave at age 15, which is enormously young. Now you think that kids don't leave school until 18, but we left at 15. And so rather than hairdressing, I got a job with the Co-op in a department store that used to be in Cannock. And I was the Co-op's first female men's tailoring assistant. So I had to be taught about how to measure suits and deal with clothing, and the very, very sort of detailed aspects of fabric and cloth and things like that. So I come from fruit and veg, freezing in the cold and hot in the winter, through to knowing that the finery of men's tailoring, and the co-op did it very well. And I loved the co-op. I loved their family. They've got a very strong family sense about the way that they work, and I loved that sort of that ethos, and loved it. I still love it today. I think it's a great model.
Fantastic. And next steps from the co-op, how long were you there for? And I know you mentioned at the start
not that very long, because I got married really, really young, and so I wasn't there too young. But even then, got married, and I still did jobs in retail and what have you. And then when I was about 20, I had my first son, Greg, who had a okay pregnancy. And I was married, and things seemed to be going okay. And then after when I gave birth to him, I had a sense that there was something wrong, and I couldn't tell you what it was. Nobody could see anything, but I just had a feeling that there was something matter, and I couldn't get anyone to listen to me. And as time went on, of course, it did turn out that he had underlying problems. He had epilepsy. He was autistic. In fact, he has Asperger's syndrome, and quite a few sort of musculoskeletal problems that didn't seem to be there, but a mother's sense is very acute. And so, had first child, and, dipped in and out of retail in different ways. I'd done all sorts of things, really. When he got a bit older, one of the problems was childcare. And so, how do you find someone to look after a Gregory? Because he was quite a handful, and he needed a lot of understanding, and was quite challenging. And you just couldn't. So I had to work with my husband to find a job that would supplement our income while he was there to look after Greg. So I became a private detective, which was a very big departure. But it would seem that I was quite good at talking to people from my retail background, and actually, being observant and having a bit of guile got me that 2 years where I could still look after Greg in the daytime, but I could do my private detective work in the evening, which was a very odd turn. And I still eat out many dinners on the stories of those couple of years.
I can imagine. How do you even get into private detective work? How did you find that as an option?
There's an advert in the Express and Star, believe it or not. I was like, mainly evening work, that'll suit me. I can do that. So I think that, again, when you come from a background of not having a lot of money, it drives you to be able to push back your fear barriers and just do it. There was stuff to do, so you get on with it and you overcome those things, and you sort of develop a solutions brain. And my team often refer to it as, Sheila, can you put on your solutions brain for a minute? Because you have to find a way around things, and when you haven't got a lot of money and you live in a family where there isn't a lot of money, you become quite creative, and you think around problems. And I think that's what entrepreneurs do. I think entrepreneurs see a problem and think around it and find an angle, or find a hook to get onto it, and then change the system. We're good at disrupting the norm. I think it's it's very common with the entrepreneurs, I find.
Seeing a challenge and turning it into a business opportunity.
I think so. Yeah, and also within the business, when you've got the opportunity, finding novel solutions to overcome even operational barriers. finding different ways, finding cheaper ways to do things. We did all sorts of things. We started our business without any benches to work on, so we stacked up pallets and put cardboard on the top, and we worked off them. And then when the cardboard got tatty, when we got a bit of money, we bought some hardboard. We thought we were in luxury, some hardboard on top of the pallets. It was fine.
So let's dig into that then. That's starting the business. So let's get back to where we were in your journey. You're a private detective. Your family is growing at this point.
Yes.
Where did Newlife Charity come into this? How did that come about?
We had our second child, Carrick, who was fine. And then our third child, Reese, who was fine till he was 5. And then at 5, he developed a condition called Perthes disease, which effectively robbed him of his right hip and affected his left hip. And he spent a long time in and out of hospital having operations and recovering and learning to walk several times, and went through many years of that happening. And, when things happen to you in your private life, you have to find a way to deal with it. When Greg was little and I realised that he would have a lifelong disabilities and challenges, I admit I went down. My mental health suffered. I had a nervous breakdown. I didn't know how to cope. I was a young woman. I'd never dealt with anything of this before. But you either sink or swim. And you can go down, but it's not very pleasant down there. So you then spend a lot of your life making sure you never go there again. And so building up your resilience, you realise someday that this isn't fair, this isn't right. Why aren't I getting the help I need? And so really that passion emerged to go, I'm experiencing this. Other people must be experiencing this. And at the time, I was also acting as a constituency secretary for an MP in a voluntary capacity. And I used to help him with lots of the people that came through the surgery, asking questions about their lives and how they could do this and how they could, get better housing and all sorts of things. So I became very involved and interested in communities and how communities work, and to a certain extent, politics, but only in as much as politics serve people and communities. I guess you either go down or you get up and face it. And when it happened to Reese, frankly, I got this sort of justifiable anger inside. Mm-hmm. This didn't feel, I didn't know what had caused this, And my practice is, if I don't understand things, I read and I absorb it all, and then I can find a way to manage that information. So I guess I got this fire in my belly to make sure that families like me didn't have to struggle with the things that I had to struggle with, and even today we see that in fact for Newlife, 70% of the families we help live in poverty. Mm-hmm. And that poverty is often caused by disability. People can't work when they're caring for their child. So I saw that personally, and I wanted to make a difference, really. So we set up the charity, Leonard, Lewis and myself. Leonard belongs to the family of that own River Island and a number of other businesses. And we met because he had a son with the same condition as my son, and I was running a support group for those families. And we met because of that, really. And we got on famously, and 30 years later, we're still doing it. And Leonard is still a trustee, and, we've moved on a lot from those days. But I think personal passion for something, if you feel passionate about it, you don't just put your energy into it, you put your heart and soul into it. And you try to do the best with what you can do on the way. And so the things that I experienced, like poverty, like seeing the social impact on communities through the work I did, through retailing, it all comes together, and for us, it created Newlife, and then we had to work out how to make money, Henrietta.
Yes. So tell me a bit about this this business model for Newlife, because that was something I found absolutely fascinating when looking at your operations. You're a huge business to fund this charity, so tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so when the charity first started, a very quick story was my husband Colin was an environmental youth officer in Wolverhampton. And Wolverhampton Council said to him, we need to get young people interested in recycling. Can you write something to get the kids interested? Well, frankly, this was 30 years ago. Green was just a colour. And all the kids were just interested in sex, drugs and rock and roll, really. He ran youth clubs for young people as well. And they really weren't in this. So we were sitting one evening, about halfway down a bottle of wine. Children have gone to bed. Good ideas, by the way, are halfway down a bottle of wine, not at the bottom.
Couldn't agree more.
And so I was saying, look, how are you going to get this done? I don't know. Maybe there's another model. Just think about it like that. Maybe there's someone out there that's doing something. And he said, well, how are we going to find out? So I don't know. I'm phoning Leonard tomorrow. I'll ask him what River Island do with the things that they don't want. So I called him and he said, I don't know really. People didn't think about these things all those years ago. But anyway, he sent us some stock. We picked it up at the local shop, and I sat on the lounge floor and thought, okay, I could sell some of this. It was samples and things like that. Some had bits cut out of them with samples of cloth, but others were fine. But it occurred to me, because I'd worked in retail, that I needed to manage the labelling in the inside. Otherwise, the River Island store would end up with a fraudulent refund. So I started cutting out the River Island labels, and really that started everything, because, then more companies came to us. We contacted other companies, and we realised that actually getting rid of excess stock that, it's out of season, or it's custom returns, or it didn't meet the colour match that you needed, or whatever it was excess of the business. That almost every business has this problem. So we grew, we started working out of the back of our car boots. I had a lady, Heather, who worked with us, and we did school halls and garage sales and market stalls and all sorts of things for a year or two. And then we realised we were getting more stock, so we took a little warehouse, 2,600 square foot. We stood at the door thinking, we'll never fill this. We will never, ever fill this. It's enormous. We'll never do this. And within 2 years, we bought the next unit, and we got to 5 units on one estate and moved to another one, 21,000 square foot. And we thought, we'll never fill this. We'll never fill it. We were processing the stock and we were selling out of the same unit. I didn't know anything about property. At that point, I didn't even own my own house. So I didn't know anything about property, but I was very good at asking. And I do think it's a very important lesson to learn if you're trying to build an organisation, is be humble enough to admit what you have absolutely no bloody idea of, and go to someone and say, I don't know how to do this. You've got expertise. Can you show me, or can you explain to me how leases work? Can you tell me what the demise is? Tell me what tenure, tell me what all of these words mean. And being willing to learn, being willing to ask and being willing to learn are really important, I think, to any entrepreneur's sort of toolbox. And so, we just kept growing. We had lots of people who worked for us, and we still have lots of people who work for us. Our very first employee, Heather, only retired last year in the pandemic. So people work for us 15, 18 years. It isn't unusual. So it's about building those relationships with your people as well. People make success.
Tell us a bit more about that approach to your people. So I know I've met some of your team when I was down seeing behind the scenes a couple of months ago, and you seem to have a really fantastic approach to sort of leading and building that team. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the culture you try and build?
Well, look, I think we're very inclusive. We give people a chance to be the best that they can be. My job as a CEO is to spot the right people, really, and then empower them, give them the opportunity to become the best that they can be. And if there's stuff that gets in the way, well, let's try and work it out. Let's find the training, or why don't you go and work with that person for a while and see how they approach that. So sometimes it's not about investing big amounts in training. It's about mentoring and coaching and giving people a belief when they don't feel that they can take the next move in their career, when they don't feel that they've got what they need. Believe in them and tell them that you believe in them and you trust them, and they grow into it. In my experience, it doesn't work with everyone, but it does work with most people. If you give them a chance, they'll grow. And today, we've got directors who started out in very low jobs. One of our directors started as a Saturday boy. We put him through university to do a second degree, and he's now, operations director for Newlife. So I think you invest in the right people, you build trust in them, you are accessible to them, and you're very inclusive, because some of our longest standing employees are those that face challenges and discrimination through disability or mental health problems in the rest of the employment area. And it's a fantastic thing when you can give people a chance to grow and you don't let it be held back. I think the other thing that we like is we like real people. We like people who don't conform. We like people who are themselves. We like characters. We like people who love other people. If you're shy and a bit sort of, there's room for you in Newlife. We'll find room for you. But certainly, giving people a chance to be who they are and not hold anything in the way, whether it's a disability, whether it's challenges like dyslexia, whether it's a physical or mental health issue. Work around it. Find ways to do that. We're not perfect as an employer. Wouldn't say we wouldn't, but we do try. And I think you should try. It's people that make success. You can have the cleverest business scheme in the world. And trust me, I've met a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, and they have great ideas, but they can't get the people bit right. And if you don't, you'll never have a company. You'll never grow and develop. So
now, speaking of growth, one of the challenges we hear a lot from businesses is how to go from being quite a small business to scaling up, going mid-size, large. You've done that in an incredible trajectory, like you say, from being in the back of a car boot to how many people do you employ now?
I lose count a bit, but I think it's 540 or something like that. I think that's about to go up to nearer 600 or so, because we're opening new stores and new ventures. And
how have you approached that scale up? Is it something that's just sort of happened naturally? You've just sort of kept going one foot in front of the other? Have you had any sort of bumps in the road?
I have learned that by the time you get to about 200 staff, the relationships you had with them, that where you knew their names and you knew their kids' names and things like that, and if their grandma had died and you knew if those things, that personal relationship gets stretched. And I didn't realize that for a while. I thought we were still quite contained and quite knowledgeable about our people, and I got that wrong. You can easily disconnect with your people if you're not careful, and if you disconnect with your people, you disconnect from your business, because it's your people that make your business. You can have the cleverest strategy in the world. You might have the finest product, but if your people that are working with it aren't engaged, you're not going to get anywhere.
So Thinking about a time where it's been quite difficult to plan and prioritise, and also to keep engagement. Obviously, we've just been through the coronavirus pandemic. Your business is hugely built as a charity on retail. How has that impacted Newlife, and how have you adapted through it?
Well, Henrietta, I don't think I ought to swear, but it was hell. So just to be clear, the vast majority of our money comes from this commercial operation, these services to that. And we take that money every month and we spend it on buying equipment for disabled and terminally ill children. And we always have children in need of help. So on March 23rd, I think it was, the announcement came that all the stores had to close, everything had to shut down. Everything seemed to stop, but one thing increased, and that was the demand for our services. Newlife runs the only emergency equipment service provision across the UK. And so when everything closed and COVID started to be spread everywhere, the phones rang off the hook with frontline professionals, every children's hospital in the country phoning us. Have you got a bed? We need to take this child home away from COVID. We need to get them to the safety of their home because in hospital they're at so much more risk. Every one of our beds went out, every one of our cots went out, all of our equipment. We were just completely overwhelmed with demand to get children safe. And we played a vital part in making sure that the children who are most vulnerable got to places of safety. So at the same time that our need was vast, our income stopped, just like that, So, over the period, we lost about £3 million. So it was really, really difficult. So then you've just got to look around and see what you can do. And for us, we'd had this tiny, tiny little eBay account, toddling away there, doing about, a couple of £100 a month or something. It was a bit of a side thing that somebody did in their spare time. And I was like, okay, I can see this coming. I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Medicines. I get lots of bulletins about health things. And so I was a bit forewarned. And so we did a lot of very quick planning when I thought we're going to lose a lot of people through illness. I didn't think we'd have a lockdown. And one of the things I brought out of the cupboard was this little tiny eBay account that was loitering away there. And we activated that very quickly. And now actually that got us through. That really helped us get through. It's meant we could save a lot of jobs. We did have to lose some jobs, about 70, which was terrible. I hate making redundancies. The first time you ever make redundancies, it's terrible and you never want to repeat it again. So it's really good reason to be good at business. So we activated eBay. We started to trade on another site as well. And then I got our comms team, our head of comms, to create a Shopify site for us. And we started to trade. And, that's gone from doing a couple of £100 a month to doing about 30,000 a week. So adversity strikes. And if you're entrepreneurial, you go, okay, so what's everybody doing at the moment? Sitting at home. I bet they still want to shop. So we found a way to do it. But, we still had stock coming in. Newlife manages over 11 million units of stock, unwanted stock that would have ended up in landfills. That's a year, 11 million units a year. So stock was still coming in. And in fact, the warehouses in the main were closed, but stock was going in. And so they were becoming overwhelmed. So more companies were writing off stock to us. So we still had to find space to put all this stock in. So at the same time, nothing was going out. We were taking lots of stock in, more stock than we'd ever had before, really. So there were lots of challenges, but our people got us through it. And just thinking about, well, what can we do that if it isn't this? What can we do?
And how did you approach that personally as a leader? You know, obviously having 500 members of staff looking to you for answers in a time where I think it's never been quite so uncertain and changeable. How did you manage as an individual?
Yeah, I think communication is absolutely vital. During the whole of the pandemic, I wrote regular open letters to our staff, telling them what we were trying to do, giving them advice about what they could do in the meantime if times were hard, making sure that they could claim things that they might be entitled to, all of that type of thing. Individually, well, the first time I went onto the shop floor, our main superstore in Cannock, and it was quiet and there was no customers, I cried. Because you've put so much of yourself into building this, and it just stops. And my fear was for the children who were going to suffer. My fear was for the people who built Newlife, who may lose their jobs. And I found it terrible. But at the same time, that steeliness and determination said, well, I'm not, there's lots of things haven't beaten us over the years. I'm not going to let a blooming virus do it, So we have to survive this. So how can we be fit? And frankly, we did it because every single thing we needed to spend out, myself and the commercial director, we signed off purchase orders for like £20. We just didn't spend. If it didn't need to be done, we didn't spend it. And we cut our costs right down to the bone. And it's surprising when you have to, what you can do, how you can control costs when you really need it to. So from a personal point of view, it was personally applying the controls that you have. And the one thing you can do is control costs. And so that put us in good stead. And we actually ended up not as bad as we thought we would at the end of the last lockdown, really. It also made us quite good at fundraising because we needed money and we needed it urgently for the children who we were trying to serve. And we put out an appeal, and £120,000 was raised pretty quickly, mainly through online, through our comms team. But then we were told, the government were going to release money for charities to help them through. And then we were told we couldn't apply, we weren't eligible. Well, I didn't think that was right. So I wrote an open letter to the Chancellor and told him that I didn't think it was right. And we started negotiations. And do you know what? We became eligible. How about that? So, you've got to be brave in business. You've got to be careful, but you've got to be brave, and you've got to prioritise and know what you're trying to achieve. And for me, it's always been about the children and the families that we serve. So, and the social impact and the planet impact we make. That recycling, has an enormous impact environmentally. The equivalent to, I think it's 5,000 cars being taken off the road every year, and we fill, Wembley Stadium 6 times over with the carbon that we save. So the whole planet thing, going back to the beginning of the story when we were trying to get recycling through with teenagers, now everybody gets it. But 30 years ago, nobody got it. It was just a problem. How do businesses get rid of stock? And so, so that's what we did. And you adapt. Be adaptable as an individual. As a person, it's really hard. And when you think you're going to lose it all and it's all going to stop, but you have to have courage, and you have to take the people who can make you strong again with you.
That's an incredible story. And that adaptability, resilience, the steely determination, I think you mentioned, has got you through that incredibly challenging time, while also creating the opportunities from the sounds of it with opening up e-commerce. So what's next for Newlife? Having gone on this incredible growth journey, having navigated the pandemic, what's next for you?
Well, we do all sorts of things at Newlife. We're quite, we're quite sort of entrepreneurial in all sorts of ways, not just in the business, the commercial side of what we do, But we're opening 2 shops in the next couple of months, one in High Wycombe, another one in South Wales. So that's going on. We're developing our processing, and we're looking to open up a production and retail operation in the north of England, quite a large one. So that's a big venture for the new year if all goes well. But from the charity's point of view, we do very novel things. As I say, we run unique services. We provide more equipment to disabled and terminally ill children than anyone in the UK. But we also challenge and we campaign, and we've changed laws that have helped disabled children, and we continue to campaign. We have our own all-party parliamentary group working on the issues of why children are being denied their right to get equipment. But we also go around it in a novel way. So one of the most recent things is that we do a loan system of equipment to help children who are in urgent need, because some of the equipment we supply can take 10, 18 weeks to build. It's pretty specialist. So we keep a loan suite and we can loan it quickly in emergencies. One of the things that we're always asked for is specialist car seats, so that children can get out and about. Some disabled children need to be held at particular angles. Others have particular limb problems. They need specialist harnesses. Others have no ability to help themselves get in or out. So there's some pretty specialist car seats that are needed. You can buy a car seat from Asda or whatever, 45 quid, even less. But these car seats are like £1,000 to £3,000. So most parents with a disabled child can't just suddenly find that money. So we were giving out a lot of grants to families. And once that you'd help that child, that was great, but that asset had gone. So we wanted to be able to loan car seats for the short while we worked with the statutory authorities for them to make the long-term provision. But our important thing was to keep that child safe. So we would desperately wanted to do this. And everyone told us you can't do it because you can't refurbish car seats and put them back out again. What we do with our beds and our hoists and our other equipment is we loan it, it comes back, gets refurbished, 5 days, it's ready to go out again. We use the suppliers to refurbish it. But we were told you can't do this with car seats. Well, we didn't take that. We decided we would look at it further. And we found you can do it, but you have to do it in a very, very specialist way, and they have to be crash tested or what have you. So we reached out to a specialist car seat provider called ETAC, who then together we reached out to Britax, one of the most famous names, and our care services, head of care services, forged a plan with them whereby we could do this. So for the first time ever, we'll be able to recycle a car seat, specialist car seats, so that it doesn't just help one child. That car seat can help several children, because each time it comes back, it gets refurbished and retested. Now, sustainability is what it's about. You've got to have services and activities that are sustainable. If we buy a bed or a hoist for a child, it doesn't just help that child. If we loan it, it can help 10 children. So being sustainable is absolutely right. And we say that we help corporates deliver their social responsibility program and to deliver those social impacts. But actually, what does that mean? Corporate? Well, that's all of us, really. It's how we are. Social? Well, that's who we are. We all live in communities. What's it really about? It's about responsibility. If you just take away all the other words, it's about responsibility, acting in a responsible way, thinking about how you and your child and your family would want to be treated, thinking about how we want the planet to be in the long term, thinking about how important it is to be inclusive when we employ people. It's just about being responsible as an individual and as a business leader and as a parent. So the future holds pushing back more barriers for kids. Just keep doing it. We can't just keep saying that, children can't get the equipment that they need. They're the next generation and the generation afterwards. They'll be the people who are running us. You and I are in nursing homes, Henrietta. They're the children of the future, and we need to equip them now so that they can fully live their lives and contribute to society, and not have worsening conditions as they grow older. So what's next for Newlife is more of the same, and more changing things, not just settling, or challenging the status quo and calling out when services aren't good enough, and making them better. Well, I hope so anyway, as long as I've got breath.
Fantastic. It sounds like you've made a career out of not taking no for an answer and putting that solutions brain into action, so we can expect much more of that to come. Thinking about leaders that have perhaps inspired you along your journey, leaders or individuals, is there anyone who stands out to you as having been a great role model or someone you've really looked up to?
I was very privileged to know the Lewis family, who I mentioned earlier. Bernard Lewis, who founded the Lewis group, really, and it was Chelsea Girl and River Island and those companies. He's an amazing guy. He's in his 90s now. He's still a very bright and very switched on leader. He's very good at the detail. He understands his business really well. He doesn't let things just pass by, and he's always amazed me. He can sit there and listen to what's going on, and then within a minute sum up what everybody has been saying for an hour. He gets it down to a priority list. He's able to funnel the information really well. So very inspiring person in my life. But I've met lots of people, and many years ago I was fortunate to get an award for entrepreneur from the Ernst Young program, which was super. And I met lots of entrepreneurs, and I never thought of myself as that. But actually, when I listened to their stories, I went, oh yes, I do that. Oh yes, I think like that. Oh yes, I don't ever want to let go of things, but you have to, Yes, I get that. So then I suddenly realized that that's who I was. And there are some great people out there that really do inspire you, that you get to meet. And I'm very fortunate. I get to meet CEOs from major retailers and companies. And there's some just such incredible people out there that really do care, but and in their own right, they're characters, and I love talking to them. And yeah, it could be quite an incestuous world if you live in the world of retail as well. So you get to know people quite well. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Sheila, so much for sharing your story. We have one final question for you, which is if you could offer just one piece of advice to an aspiring CEO, those entrepreneurs of the future, what would it be?
Oh, well, you can't do anything without the right people. You as an individual can have all the ideas in the world. You can write them all down. You can plan them all out. But build your people and you'll build your business. That would be my piece of advice. It's the thing that I see other entrepreneurs doing as well. And it stands them in good stead. So I think it would be that. And learn from your mistakes. Try to understand that nothing will be perfect. Yeah, I have a rule that nothing is perfect. You can't expect 100% of everything to go right. My expectation is that if it's 95 gone okay, that's great, that's fine. 5% of everything will go wrong. Just when it gets to 10%, you think about it a bit. But if it's 50%, you worry about it. But if you just accept that, some part of every project you do will just not go as you wanted it to, it's not the end of the world. You've still achieved 95%. So be realistic and be reasonable, I think. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Hope that helps somebody out there. I don't know, but Hope it helps.
I think that's a perfect summary to your story as well. Build your people and you'll build your business, and learn from your mistakes and keep moving forward. Fantastic. Thank you again, Sheila. It's been really inspirational, informative, and just fantastic listening to your journey today. For those listening at home, you can tune in to more CEO stories and other podcasts from the Chamber, wherever you get your podcasts. We're at the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce podcast. And of course, don't forget to follow us on social media at GRBham Chambers on Twitter, Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for listening. Sheila, thank you once again. Have a great day, everyone.